Welcome to week 2 of the course, and this week we're looking at mass society theory and propaganda theory. I want you to take special note of the time frame during which these theories arose, and that's the late 19th century to the mid 20th century. So we're going to talk first a little bit about the social and historical context. So what's happening at the end of the 19th century? We have a huge rise in industrialization, urbanization. People are starting to move from an agrarian, farm-based lifestyle to working in cities, working in factories. Think of Upton Sinclair's novel about the meatpacking industry. And we have the rise of large companies. So, mining, automotive, the Ford company, really driving people toward the city for economic opportunity. And that includes movement all across the country from the south to the north, to the industrial hub of the United States at the time. This also leads to like an increase, saying the advent of consumerism, but with the mass production of goods, there's also now a need to encourage people to buy goods that they may or may not have previously had. So therein lies the connection with modern advertising. And at the same time, there are a number of major international conflicts, the World Wars I and World War II, and the emergence of new political ideologies. So a country, the United States, had long been practicing and promoting democracy, and in other parts of the world there was a rise in totalitarian governments, a new rise in dictatorships, fascism, and eventually communism and socialism as different from democracy. So what was the impact of media on society? So this is sort of what the theorists are struggling with, is they're trying to understand what is the effect that media is having on society. So mass society theory posits that it's disruptive, at least. There's fear and belief in the direct impact and fear of the direct impact that media are having on society. There's generally a sense that society and individuals are virtually powerless to resist, that if it's in the media, if the message is sent, individuals will ingest that, believe it, and adopt it. On the other hand, other theorists are looking at the fact that media can be used for the good of society to train, educate, or even accustom individuals to the preferred elite values. So we're going to look at a few images of the variety of society and the levels of society at this time. So the rise of the movie house was seen as something in direct conflict with elite culture. So elites were spending their time in high society or ballet and symphony, art, like more theatrical rather than movie house theaters. And this was seen as a concern that would draw people away from the preferred values that the powerful, the elite, had. TV coming directly into the home meant that media messages could be sent directly to individuals in the privacy of their own space with little interference. And so that would lead to a lack of control. So we've got this good versus bad concept, this mix or this tension between the high elite and powerful culture versus a mass, popular, probably poor commoners, less educated or uneducated and non-powerful society. Propaganda was considered to threaten or undermine U.S. social order. And we also have the industrialization of media. So there's new information, new forms of content, and there's a dramatic increase in volume and accessibility of content. So the improvements in printing presses led to things like Reader's Digest and magazines, leaflets, brochures, an increase in newspapers. So not just types of content, but also volume and speed of content production. And then the realization that media could be utilized to push political agendas of any kind, to sell products, and therefore impact cultural norms and standards. And we see this directly in advertising, and even today, this is the basis of strategic organizational communication. So a few examples of advertisements of the time, taking a look at, Coca-Cola and Jell-O and the Kodak camera, encouraging people to, drink that soda to the very last drop, and that Jell-O is America's most famous dessert. We also have a different style of culture and content. So Charlie Chaplin was pivotal in the rise of his style, and his impact on US society in the 1920s is very, very different from what we would call an elite or high social order culture. Elite culture would have been seen at derbies, finely dressed. There's wealth and power and prestige associated with that. Spending time in ballet houses and symphonies, as I mentioned earlier. And another type of culture that was in struggle or in conflict with the desire for the powerful and the elite to maintain control would have been folk culture. So a more rural culture. If the movie houses were the sort of common culture of cities and urbanized areas where people could gather en masse, rural communities still held on to sort of a smaller, community-based, more closely tied to family and tradition culture. So this is a period of amplified change. There's a fear of the loss of control. There's the fear that the people and masses can't be trusted to resist the direct impact of media. And there are changes in lifestyle. So urbanization and the changes in society that result from that. Transportation, the spread of communication, media, access to these different messages, and different types of products being created by government or industry. I want to call attention to these two concepts, Gemeinschaft, which is the traditional folk culture, and Gesellschaft, which is the urban new social system. And the traditional folk culture is that which is tied to a rural, more traditional, family-based culture, whereas in an urban setting, this new social system was they're allowed for a lot more independence between individuals and cooperation, but not really norms and expectations that were expected or developed based on tradition and family history. So moving on to talk a little bit about propaganda. Is propaganda black, gray, or white? This is what Buran and Davis call to our attention. Propaganda could be used for a variety of political ideologies. It could be viewed as a tool to shape society over time and to protect people from themselves. It's also the basis of modern advertising, strategic communication, and organizational public relations. And the theories range from propaganda as a means to controlling masses and to do what the masses cannot do for themselves because they're dumb, busy, uninvolved. But the same techniques were also believed to be useful in educating society. So if you could share an idea and slowly roll it out over time and change the opinion and the beliefs of the masses, you could do this for a controversial or new political ideology. You could do this to raise awareness or bring attention to an issue, or you could do this. White propaganda could be used to educate community, society, to shift their attention and their knowledge base in a positive direction. So, a few examples of recognizable political propaganda, both relevant to or related to World War II. We have on the left German propaganda that is encouraging young men to join the ranks of the Hitler Youth. We've got Rosie the Riveter and the Kick Their Axis poster, just generally gaining support for the US involvement in the war. More recent political propaganda is the difference between President Obama's previous political campaign, Hope, and current President Trump's campaign to make America great again. Ooh. Other places where we see propaganda at work is in the advertising industry. I think the beauty and health industries are really well known for doing this just by using images and words to convey meaning, societal standards of beauty, health, physical status, as well as the desire to buy products. So first we had MAC makeup, and now we have a deodorant that's being used by a very strong looking individual. So the other way that propaganda style communication could be used is in media literacy. And Baran and Davis touch on this, that if you can communicate information and shift societal understanding of an issue, you can use it for good. And so the same concept, the theory of propaganda theory that can be understood as a lens to look at political communication, what we consider a negative or maybe black propaganda, war propaganda that supports war, versus a gray propaganda that might be just encouraging or influencing people to buy products, and then a white propaganda that could be educating individuals to really raise their own level of awareness around media. So media literacy. What is media? How does it function? How does it impact me? Where is it? Who controls it? Who creates it? Where is money flowing through media and media organizations? And this is an area of great importance in our society today, at least in my opinion. So as we're looking at these theories, we're seeing these really kind of foundational tensions about media creation and society, and what is the relationship between a media product and an individual. Are they directly impacted by it? And that's what mass society theory and propaganda theory more or less are claiming. And then this looks at a pretty foundational difference between the two actors and basic actors in a media relationship, and that is the difference between a system or an agency and an individual. So how much agency does an individual have, and how much power does a system or organization have to influence individuals? And I think that as we continue to examine theories throughout the quarter, we're going to see that different theories and different theorists look at the power balance or imbalance between systems and individuals in different ways. So hopefully this helps kind of give a broad overview of what you'll be reading this week. And I look forward to our discussions and our first Impassioned Defense. Have a great week.